Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is greatly appreciated that you're here watching. And in today's video, I'm going to go over spinning reels. How to go about choosing them and why I think you need to go this route for surf fishing. Let's jump into it. I'm going to start off covering some features and aspects of reels that I think are important and some that aren't so important. And we're going to start off with gear ratio. And if you don't know what gear ratio is for every one complete revolution of your reel handle, the rotor will go around the spool X amount of times. So if it's a 5-1 gear ratio, for every one revolution of the reel handle, that rotor goes around the spool 5 times. Now, when it comes to throwing set rigs out in the surf, gear ratio is not very important, to be honest. I mean, you're casting and then you're soaking baits. Where gear ratio starts to come in is when you're going after big fish and you're looking for some speed. And now gear ratio doesn't always equal speed though. It can have a really high gear ratio, but if it's a really small spool, you're not going to get a whole lot of speed out of it, just because you're not going to have your line retrieval, like your inches per turn. That's not going to be super high even with a smaller spool. When you're casting lures, when you need something that moves fast, that's where these high speed reels start to come into play. Let's say you're throwing a big old spoon and you're ripping it through the water as fast as you can for Spanish. That's where the higher gear ratio and the higher line retrieval, that's going to benefit you when you're throwing lures. Not going to benefit you a whole lot soaking shrimp for 4 or 5 hours or however long you fish. But when you're casting and you got to get those lures through the water as quick as possible, that's when gear ratio and inches per turn start to come into play. Sealed versus non-sealed reels. This is a Pin Slammer 3. It is a sealed reel, and not everybody needs a sealed reel. In fact, not hardly anybody needs a sealed reel, to be completely honest. I mean, if you're going to be out casting lures out in the surf, if you're going to be out in the water, belly deep, chest deep, and you're going to be throwing and you're going to have waves splashing up all over your reel, couldn't think of the word there. That's when a sealed reel starts to come in and have its benefits. That it's going to keep that water out of there as much as possible. Now if you're standing back on the sand and you're casting, you're putting that rod and reel in a sand spike and you're not getting splashed, your reel's not being covered in water, then that sealed reel doesn't have a whole lot of benefits yet. It's going to keep a little bit of sand out. It's not a necessary feature unless it's going to be a workhorse of a reel that you're going to be dunking, it's going to be getting wet. That's when your sealed reel actually has benefits to it. All right, when it comes down to the number of bearings in a reel, to me, I can't tell the difference in it. The Penn Pursuit 4 is a 4+1 bearing system. The Slammer is a 7+1 bearing system. They're both buttery smooth. They both feel great when you reel them. There's only so many places you can cram bearings in these spinning reels where I think they actually do make a difference. There are a few key spots where you need bearings. And then I think they've just decided, hey, you know what? Let's keep cramming bearings in there. People are going to think, hey, if this has 11 bearings, it's got to be better than the one with 5 bearings. I don't agree with that. I'm sure there are some reels out there that have a lot of bearings that do feel better, but I just can't tell the difference between 5 bearings and 8 bearings. To me, there's no difference. So I don't get too worked up about the number of bearings in a reel. Now, this topic is going to be the big one. This is what everybody wants to know, and it's what size of reel. That's actually a pretty broad spectrum because it depends on what you're doing with the reel and the surf. If you're casting lures and you're keeping everything in really close, you could easily drop down to a 2,500 or 3,000 size reel. If you're fishing for whiting and you're fishing in real close to the beach, again, you could drop down to a 2,500 to 3,000 size reel. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you're constantly targeting big red drum, you may want to look into a 5,000 or 6,000 size reel. Some might even prefer to go bigger than that. I think anything over a 6,000 is pretty overkill for a vast majority, and to be honest, I think anything over a 4,000 size is starting to become overkill for a vast majority of the fish we catch here along the Alabama Gulf Coast. And just to show you a little comparison, here's a size 4,000 Penn Pursuit 4. This is a size 5,000 Penn Pursuit 3. But I mean, there is a drastic size difference between a 4,000 size reel and a 5,000 size reel. And the weight, I mean, there is a huge weight difference also. Me personally, all my reels across the board are 4,000 size reels. If anything, I would go to 3,000 size reel for when I'm casting lures real close to the beach, when I'm targeting flounder or something like that. Or my whiting rigs, I kind of wish I had 3,000 size reels for those. But I've got all 4,000 size, and I'm not going to buy new reels just to switch that up. But to me, the 4,000 size reel is the perfect middle ground reel. It's the perfect, most versatile size reel. And the reason is, it's small enough that it doesn't overpower your whiting and your pompano. But on the other end of the spectrum, it's big enough that if you hook into a 40-inch red, you're going to be able to bring that dude in, no problem. It's going to be an awesome fight. You're not going to just winch them in real fast. I mean, they're going to run. You're going to gain a little bit of ground. They're going to run again. But that's the whole point of fishing. That's what makes it fun. So these guys that I see out there with, size 6,000, 7,000 reels, and they're throwing them 15 yards off the beach and cranking in 1 pound whiting, there's no point in that. That's just overpowering them. I mean, you're literally just cranking them in. There's zero fight. Now, I know a lot of guys like the 5,000 size reel in the surf, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just to me, it's just that too big. I really like the 4,000 size reel. But if you're using a 5,000 size reel, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And to be honest, whatever you're using, I mean, it's your gear. There's nothing wrong with using what you want. This is just my preference, and it's my opinion, and you can take it or leave it. You're not going to hurt my feelings. It's your choice what you use out there. And when it comes to casting lures in the surf, it's kind of the same thing. I think that 4,000 size is just kind of that perfect middle ground. Now, if you're going to be targeting the flounder and real tight to the beach, yeah, you can easily drop down to a 3,000 size reel. And I encourage it, actually. Even though I'm going to be using a 4,000 size reel, I think a 3,000 size reel is about perfect for doing that. But you don't want to go too big. I mean, if you're going to be throwing a 6,000 size reel casting lures, it's not going to take you a whole lot of cast before that really starts to wear you out. So just keep that in mind too, that the bigger the gear you have, especially when it comes to casting, the more it's going to fatigue your body and the quicker you're going to wear out. All right, guys, hopefully that got you pointed in the right direction on picking a surf reel, whether that's for soaking baits or if it's for casting lures. Hopefully that got you on track and gave you an idea of what to look for. And again, I always appreciate you guys watching my videos, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So until next time, I'll see you later.